You're listening to the Crew Book Club podcast, the show that challenges you to change your mindset through hearing about dope books. Thanks for hanging with the crew to get advice, ask questions, and gain knowledge with me, your host, Sade Hill. What up, crew? What's good? It's your girl, Sade, ready for another episode of the Crew Book Club podcast. You ready? I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm pretty sure there's like a trap beat, I'm ready, SpongeBob song. Who can sing that to me? That'll be a dope intro. Anywho, this past week has been absolutely amazing. I cannot tell y'all. With everything that I've been doing in the past 2.5 years, when did I start? 2020. Going live on Instagram every Sunday because I didn't really know what a podcast was, and I didn't know how to do any of this. So to be in 2023 and the offers and opportunities that I've had presented to me in the past week has been absolutely a game changer. And it's something that I never thought that I would be doing based off of what my goal was when I first got into podcasting. Like, literally, this podcasting is a gifted thing that comes so effortlessly, where I'm not saying it's easy. What I'm saying is I don't have to overthink this. This is something that I don't have to, quote unquote, pull myself together for. You know what I'm saying? And it's just an absolute blessing to be doing what I have been presented and offered to do and the opportunity. So all I want to tell you is don't give up. You just don't know how close you are to your next level. You hear me? Oof, I'm so excited. And yeah, so this week I've had a very productive schedule, a lot of training, had some I had like 3 coaching sessions. 2 of them was real estate. 1 of them was about just business, period, who I am and how to elevate my brand and things of that nature. And my coach goes deep, y'all. She go deep. Sometimes I'll be like, can we just get to the bag? But wholeheartedly, I appreciate the process. And I want you to appreciate the process. What I've learned is falling in love with the process, because there's always going to be a process to get to something. And until we die, there's a process. And the process that she's taking me through is understanding my why at a deeper level and understanding my story. She had me like bawling, crying. And I didn't really understand the importance of my story until I started coaching with her. And telling my story is the most scariest but healing thing in the world. And it's also doing God's will. Like, I'm only able to get through the things that I've been through in life is because of him. And who am I not to share it with? Oh my God, my husband gonna check me. I left my ring upstairs trying to clean it. Anywho, but in that conversation we had yesterday and the training she had me watch, I was just like, wow. And that is what I'm realizing is I don't want to be surface with you guys. I really want to really share that I didn't just get to this space off of a will and a way. Like, it took a lot of heart. It took a lot of disappointments, and it's still disappointments. And there's always going to be that. But also stuff that goes way back to when I was a child. Like, it's so much, and I'm processing all of that so I could be able to help share it with you. Because what I'm realizing is to go back and understand your story, where you come from, how it made you who you are today, affects everything. And if I don't heal properly and process before I get to the quote unquote level of success that I know God has prepared for me to be a leader and to help other people in the way that I want to help, I have to help me and heal me. and be confident enough to share my story and to know how to move. Okay? Because I want to come from the most honest and transparent place with you. And of course, there are some things that are just straight up private. You get what I'm saying? Like, but you also want to have that discernment. Okay, God, do you want me to share this in this moment, in this room with this person? You get what I'm saying? So that all ties into just believing bigger and going through the process. And what we talk about it in her book is the purpose map. All right. And she digs deep too. And this is why I like doing books like this, because it allows you to embrace yourself, to figure out yourself. So then you can change your mindset, and changing your mindset will allow you to do anything. Okay. So we're going to get into the first segment of the show. Who gonna check me, boo? God is. He is always checking us because we deserve a good check. And this check comes from the 100 Days of Believing Bigger journal, which I told y'all we're going to stay in this journal because we're doing her book, Believe Bigger by Marshawn Evans Daniels. Okay. So, day 21, 21, 21, embracing you, Romans 12, verse 6 through 7. It said, let's just go ahead and be what we were made to be without enviously or pridefully comparing ourselves with each other or trying to be something we aren't. Now, I highlighted this specific sentence in her passage, and it said, God won't bless who you pretend to be, so let's stop conforming, shrinking, dimming your light, and running from who and what you were always meant to be, say, create, and do. I just talked about knowing when to say, how to say, what to do, all of that, okay, is about embracing you. And the prompt question in the journal was, how have you been chipping away at who you are by trying to be what everyone else needs? What is God now showing you about yourself that needs to come out of hiding? My story is it's like you go through this level of trying to protect the people closest to you, and sometimes that could be hurting you all at the same time. Like, you ever been in a situation where you felt like you knew God was telling you to do something or to say something to someone or to share something, but you got one person like, well, don't do this, don't say that, I don't think that's a good idea. It's like, okay, but God told me to do it. And the person who's telling you to do this is someone that you value and someone that you don't want to have an argument with. So then you end up conforming and dimming and holding back. And it ends up hurting you because now I'm not doing what God asked me to do. And I know you're probably thinking, well, would God ask me to do something that will hurt somebody else? I don't think that's the case. I think it's like trusting that if you when you do what God asks you to do, He will protect you from whatever, because that's what He would want you to do, right? So that's something that I struggle with, because I want to respect and I don't want to hurt the people in my life. And we also talked about in the coach, it's like, are we hurting the people because of their own insecurities? And how do you prevent hurting them? It's like, before you write the book, before you speak on a topic, speak to them, let them know. Because are they more hurt because you blindsided them? Or are they more hurt because they haven't dealt with their own situations that they're projecting and they want a perception? And then it's like, yeah, but it's my story. It's my perspective. It's how I feel in this story. So yeah, it's juggling that. But back to the scripture about, comparing ourselves with each other or trying to be something we aren't. There is a level of fakeness that can easily show up because we're trying to please an audience or a person in our life. And so I had to check myself, and I'd be like, okay, in this situation, am I doing this because they want me to do it? Or am I not saying this because I don't want to be the bright light in this situation? And so I want to be able to not run from who God has intended for me to be. And that could be very challenging because we care. You might say you don't care what people think, or you don't care how it affects, but at the end of the day, we do. Stop lying. Stop playing. Okay? So that was Who Gon Check Me Boo, God Is. All right. So one of the things that definitely helped me to better understand who I am and not trying to be the people pleaser that I learned to be was going to therapy. So thank goodness for our partnership of this episode, BetterHelp, that gives us the opportunity to get 10% off our first month of professional therapy. And these are the brands that I like to partner up with that actually benefit the community that we're building here. Okay, the club that we building. Okay, hey, book club. So get your first month 10% off with betterhelp.com/crewlove. That's better, HELP/crewlove. And another way you can show me some crew love is leave a written review, give the podcast 5 stars, share the episode, and follow us on social media, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as visit thecrewbookclub.com. You can get the episodes there. You can also purchase merch. We have shirts, bookmarks, and things of that nature. Okay? Now, this book now. We on chapter 6, y'all. And it's about, it's the stage 2, and it's about talent. In the beginning of the chapter, she has a quote, and it says, when you don't have a clear vision, any vision will do. It's kind of like if you don't have no stance, you'll fall for anything. Is that the saying? Did I say it right? If not, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so on page 99, she says, the talent stage is where success guides our steps and approval paves our path. This is where you turn our beliefs about where we think we belong into choices that set us on a particular path. So it definitely ties into embracing you. In the talent stage, we ask, who did you decide to be? Okay? Whew. Now, who did you decide to be? And I think, and I'm happy she touched this, it's about what is the right lane. Because I think we kind of have this thought process of, what should I be doing? What's the right way to go? I remember growing up, it was a thing, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, or, but it's just like, is that really what you want to do? Just because it's not, that was what was deemed success, prestige, if I'm saying it right. You get what I'm saying? So on page 104, she says, the right lane is a paved path. It's an acceptable right way of doing things, and going down it leads to an approved life. One that is socially desirable, stable, and viewed as successful. The right lane has an insanely strong pull, so strong that its path most people, not just women, travel. The path least likely to cause us pain, even if it's coward. The question is, are we equipped to pick a path aligned with our destiny? It's hard to pick a path you don't even know exists, and it's incredibly unlikely that you will pick a path you don't believe you belong in or deserve. Now, like I said, I think in the last episode I talked about college and how the perception was, you go to college, you get a career, you become successful. That is the path most taken, and that was drilled into me, and that's what I did. It wasn't my choice, but the thing was, I ended up having the great experience at one of the baddest HBCUs in the land, Florida A&M University, and I don't regret it. It taught me about my history because I went to predominantly white schools, and so I really only knew about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. I didn't know who W.E.B. Du Bois was until I went to FAMU. You know what I'm saying? So even though it was kind of forced upon me, I took full advantage and do not regret that I went to the HBCU, because it was an experience that I could never get back. You get what I'm saying? So I felt like I was decent at, I learned how to be good in school. I learned how to accomplish those things. And then once I really set on it, it was like everything came out for my good. God already had it for my good. You get what I'm saying? And it worked out. And so instead of settling in what I wanted to do, I matured into seeing the purpose of why. Like, nothing happens to us is a surprise to God. He knew that's where I was going to go. And she goes into this other section of this chapter about settling versus maturing. And she says the decision to choose the quote unquote right lane at 14 years later turned out to be an incredible, influential choice. It shaped the focus of my life, my decisions, my schooling, my goals, my time, and my spirit for the next 11 years. So even though schooling was pushed on me to go to college, when I went to college, y'all, I met my husband in college. I modeled in college. I learned to be on my own. I had my first daughter in college. And even though I was guided that way, it still worked out for me. Same when I think about real estate. I had this perception of real estate because my dad was a realtor, so I'm second generation. But I saw how he did it, and I thought, I don't want to do real estate because I don't want to be like that, where I don't have time for my kids or I'm always gone on the weekend. But God said, I don't have to do it that way. And I remember my husband was the one who introduced me to real estate. And I kind of felt like, I guess I'll do it since you're paying for everything and I'm going to just check this box off for you. But in actuality, it worked out perfect because the things that I have accomplished in real estate has been the most amazing experience to help, a lot of which have been my community get into homes that they never thought that they could afford to be in. So the things that sometimes we associate with bad experience, we have to dig deeper instead of settling and mature into the mindset that God has everything working for our good, and we need to find a good in those things. Okay? So that was the basis of chapter 6. Please, you guys, order the book. There's so many different things I had highlighted, but I want to read this last point. It says, even if we don't always see or understand God's hand in the moment or miss the clues about it, He's pre-wired us to impact others. Divine providence is always working. So whatever you're going through or wherever you feel like someone is guiding you into or being forced to do, just pray about it. And if you don't have no other options and you have to do it, find the good in that. And you may not find it in that moment, but you'll have a aha moment. I promise you that. And if you don't, that's okay too. It might come when you least expect it. So in chapter 7, she gets into masquerading and mountain climbing. Now, on page 114, she says, spiritual growth comes from perspective. Oh, I love that. Spiritual growth comes from perspective. And it says, most women I know tend to strive and define themselves in one of 5 areas, the 5 success mountains: marriage, motherhood, mending, and making a difference. Ooh, y'all, my mountain was mending, which in the books is called inner miss fixer. It's the reason we end up trying to be all things to all people. We find validation in being able to help others solve their problems, being reliable and dependable, and sacrificing ourselves for the sake of saving others. Yeah, that's me. And perspective of being the inner miss fixer. It's like when something go wrong, I had to be the one to figure it out. But that's also how I received praise. And that was also the condition of people pleasing. Even though I may not be wanting to do it, I would do it because I knew it will please the person that I'm trying to impress, to get a woohoo, look what Sade did type of thing. And I had to reevaluate that. Now, baby, you can say something. And like today I was on a call with someone. They asked me about editing podcasts. And I was just like, oh, I could make an extra coin doing it. But is that really what I want to do? And also, is that really what God wants me to do? And I know that ain't what God wants me to do. I just know it ain't. Because I can do it for my own pod, but I do not want the daunting task of doing that for somebody else. But in the past, if I didn't go to therapy and process that and heal, I would have not spoken up and would have been doing something that does not serve God's purpose nor me at all. Okay? The other one that I making a difference. That's another mountain. And that mountain, I have to check myself regularly so I won't climb it. And I highlighted it in the section. She says, it's through our efforts seem noble. Truly, we want something in exchange. We want praise and we want validation. Underneath the surface, there's ultimately a burning desire to satisfy a void by being seen as a servant. And this is where I talk about the perception, your intentions. And let me tell you, God knows your intentions, because I'm going to tell you, I didn't really start getting the opportunities that I have until I was really intentional about it not being about me. That's when the opportunity came with ease, where I didn't have to interview for something. It was just, here you go, because God knew my intentions were good and they were not coming from a selfish place. Like, when your intentions are coming from a selfish place. Like, oh, if I do this, then I know, or I expect to get this because I'm doing it. This reminds me of a story of growing up, what taught me what not to do. I remember it was my senior year in college, and I had my graduation, and my dad had came to my graduation, and him and his wife gave me $500 for a gift card. It was a Visa, or was it cash? I can't remember, but it was $500. And mind you, I graduated December 10th. Okay, December 25th was on the way, and I think my mom had gave me like $1,000. It was $1,500 that I had to move from Tallahassee to Orlando, and it was my husband and I. And at the time, they didn't know I was married. And so my husband and I have this $1,500 that's supposed to pay for a U-Haul, gas, and to get us through till we got another check when we got to our jobs in Orlando. So I think we moved down, and then I came up to Jacksonville to have Christmas to visit my dad, to do Christmas, and to do Christmas with my mom. This particular night, it was Christmas Eve, because that's when my dad and his wife likes to do Christmas activities. And I arrived, and I came with a card. And I remember in the card, I wrote, "Hey, thank you guys so much. I appreciate what you've done and the gift that you got me for graduation. And Duran and I are planning on getting things for our parents in January when we get income tax. So this is just a card to say thank you, yada, yada, yada." I'm thinking we have a good time. They do get me gifts. And I left thinking everything was fine. And then like a few weeks later, I get a call. I don't even think it was a few weeks. I got a call from my dad. I don't know. It was actually like a few days. And he goes, "Hey, Sade, you could have got something. You could have got a candle. You could have got something. You need to take care of the people who take care of you and the people who do for you." Mind y'all, it ain't a whole bunch my dad has done. I can like count the times he pulled through for me on one hand in college. You know what I'm saying? So for him to make me feel, and in that moment, I remember having the conversation like, listen, don't do nothing for me. If your intentions aren't good and your gift comes with conditions, you can keep the gift. And I felt like we all know when we're doing something with the wrong intentions, and I challenge you to not do it. And it takes a very, what did we talk about just now um in chapter 6, maturing, settling versus maturing. I feel like the most mature thing you can do if you know you're about to do something without the best intentions is to not do it. Okay? Because unconsciously, it will come out. Okay? You will start to act funny because you feel entitled. You know what I'm saying? And that's a whole nother conversation about parent entitlement to kids. I had a conversation with my cousin the other day about that. That's a whole nother story. But in pertaining to what we're discussing in chapter 7 about making a difference in somebody's life is great. But when it comes to your intentions of making a difference, that's when we need to check ourselves. And I have to do that still, even with even in even in the everyday life of being a realtor, and understand like there's boundaries that have to be set in place with my clients and with my customers, buyers and sellers. You know, I have to be like, no, you can't break your back to please everybody, and you're not meant to be friends with everybody. Okay, so it's just like I had to stop being Miss Fix It and really be like, okay, God, what do you want me to fix today? What do you want me to make a difference in today? Because I want to make sure that it's about your glory and it's not about the glory for me. I had told when I first got into podcasting, my logo was not the picture that you see of the pod. It wasn't me. I didn't want it to be me. I didn't want my face, because I would say my life is not my life. I want people to listen to the book, get the content, change their lives, not knowing who I am. And my coach is like, that ain't it. You ain't doing that. And even my business coach, nope, that ain't it. But most importantly, God was just like, people have to see you to understand and connect with your story so they can receive it and so they can change their lives. So click the link to order the book so you can really process on the action step that you can take to believe bigger. Okay? All right. That was the main point that I wanted to hit in chapter 7. All right. Let's get into the challenge of the week, because y'all know I can't let y'all go. Ain't no point of getting all this information and not putting it into action. So I if you're new to the podcast, I always pull something from one of the chapters to challenge you. And this particular challenge, I want to call it Uncover Your Talent. Because I think a lot of us misunderstand what a talent is. Like making brownies, if they real good, sis, and people like them so much that they might pay for them, that's a talent. I remember there was a clip about Steve Harvey where he was like, the fried, was it fried chicken? It was something that he was like, if you out here, cakes, if you baking cakes and everybody like your cake, that's a talent that could be income. Okay, so this challenge was inspired by on page 120. It is valuable and helpful to purposely uncover and take stock of your talents, your skills, abilities, achievements, and what you're good at. So you guys got your paper and pen, or watch what time mark we're at. Write this down and answer these questions. What are your talents? What have you learned to do really well? What impact have you made at home in your community and the lives of others, and or in your career and journey thus far? And last question, and what are the things you enjoy doing that just naturally flows? And she says, don't be shy. God wants us to look at our talents with a healthy sense of accomplishment and gratification, just as God looked proudly upon his work after creating the world. All right? Talents may be our beginning, but they are not supposed to be our ending. We need to allow God to lead us out of the talent stage and into what I like to call the gap. Tapping into God made purpose, soaked future awaiting you is the only real path of fulfillment. So we'll get into that next week, but I want you to answer those questions. What are your talents? What have you learned to do really well? What impact have you made at home, community, in the lives of others, or your career journey thus far? And what are the things you enjoy doing? And when we talk about impact, it could be as simple as I take this old lady to the grocery store, or whenever I see homeless, I'm led to give them something no matter what people say about homeless people. Like, it could be small. Don't think that it has to be this huge impact or this overly financial impact that you made. And if it is, that's great. I'm just saying, like, don't minimize what you've done to change. It could be every morning the lady at the front desk have her head down, but I want to make sure I'm pouring positivity in her life. She don't acknowledge me, and I say, hey, I have grace for people. You know what I'm saying? Or empathy, whatever it is. But really, don't minimize the impact that you have on people's lives. All right? Now, another actionable thing, you guys, is you can always email the crew at thecrewbookclub.com, DM at the Crew Book Club to ask some questions so I can give you the best advice. Okay? And this question was DM to me. It had said, I listened to your podcast last week about being forced to attend church as a child. I went through a similar childhood experience with my parents in church. I don't go to church for that very reason. How did you start going back and discovering your own relationship with God? I'm laughing because my really great college friend just came to mind. Her name is Carlita. And I remember, I was having too much fun in college, not really caring. I was actually on academic probation my junior year in college. So I graduated in 5 years instead of 4. Okay. But I did it. I never been asked. But back to your question. So there was Carlita. And when she became the roommate, I was kind of on the outs with the other 2 roommates. Not because they just wasn't my vibe. Like, they was doing too much. They was chasing. They was boy chasers. I wasn't a boy chaser. Okay. I was the flower. And they were the bees. Catch that. But when Carlita moved in, I would see her reading her Bible. I would see her getting up Sunday morning, going to church. And she would just be so, and I'd be like, I want that type of peace. I want that type of calmness. She had her own car. And she was just so gracious and so nice and so open and so cheery. And so she was just like a little teddy bear. And I just saw how much peace she had. And then I saw what she was doing to get that peace. And then one time we were talking and she ended up inviting me to church. I was like, yeah, I'll go. Yeah. And then it became, okay, knock. I'm going to church. Get up, Sade, get up. So I ended up going with her, and I just was just like, okay, I can do this church, because I felt like I saw other collegiate people, like people my age, worshiping God. And I just felt like how the pastor spoke, it wasn't your typical way. It wasn't speaking at me. It was speaking to help me. And it wasn't condemning me. You know what I'm saying? I think it was Pastor White or something. And I can't remember his name, but he was so good at conveying the gospel without this, you better do this or you're going to hell type of vibe. And so I started going with her, and it just completely changed my life. And one of the pivotal moments was I had like $1.42 in my bank account, and I had $30 to my name in a wallet. And I remember him And because I rode with her, she sung in the choir. And because I rode with her, I couldn't just go home. So the first service, he's preaching about tithing and giving. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But God was tugging on my heart to give the $30. And I was like, God, this all I got. This all I got. This all I got till next week. Okay. And so I kind of pushed through him tugging at me the first service. And then we went to this this breakout before the second service. And then we ended up coming. And then it was like this, like adult Sunday school. And we talked about tithing again in the message. And I'm like, yeah, da, da, da. And I'm kind of just listening at the time because I could feel literally the energy of God, like, do it. You better do it. Not in a bad way, like a better, but more so like, do it. Test me. Try me. Let me show you who I am. And we go into the second service and he preaching again. Now, he preaching the same word, but it's just a little different, And so I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to give you this last $30. And I'm going to test you this time. I'm going to try you this time. So I write the envelope, and then I leave. And I think that Wednesday we had a friend's dinner. And it was a plethora of us at the table celebrating a friend's birthday. And this friend we was at Olive Garden, girl. That was a judge. Okay. And they're all talking. And then I started talking about God. And now I'm sitting there. And my friend covered my food because that's just how we roll. I told her, hey, I ain't got it. But she's like, I got you. So she ended up covering my food. And I was just talking about how I'm changing my life. I'm giving my life to Christ. I'm going to try him again. I've been praying. It's been really helping. And I'm not going to put up with this from this guy I was talking to and da 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 da. And so there was another young lady at the table. Didn't know her. I knew of her, but didn't really know her. And she literally I think that Friday, because that was a Wednesday, that Friday, she called me. She said, hey, Sade. I was like, who is it? She was like, this is so-and-so, your friend's roommate. I was at the dinner and I heard you talking about God and how you giving your life to him and yada, 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 and how you coming back to church. And I went home and I said, I'm going to pray for the first time about her financial aid. And because, she needed the money like a lot of us did in college. And she was like, I prayed. And I got my financial aid. And I want to give you $300 in 2 days. I don't want to cry every episode. Y'all hear me? But in 2 days. And I said, and I remember I was sitting on the bus staring out the window about, okay, I get paid in 2 days. I'm going to be straight. And thank Carlitha would come through. She had food stamps. She would cover me. And to have that type of heart, like she moved as if she was in a relationship with God. And she showed me what that looks like. And I'm having a moment because God has been so good. But I tried him on my own. Not what? And I didn't tell anybody that I was going to church like I was going. And you don't have to. People can just see it. And when that girl, from that day forward, I've tithed every since, and I've never gone without. And so I had to try God for myself. So I would say for you to try him for yourself and understand that everybody's individual relationship with God is different. And like we talked about, we can't compare ourselves and our walk in Christ. Like you can't be, oh, she lifted her hands more, she doing this more, that's why she got more. No. You have to solely focus on your individual relationship with Christ. My mama had this type of relationship with Christ and look how she living. That don't matter. You have to focus on your own individuality, your own individual relationship with him. And that is what I focus on. I don't compare myself to anybody else's relationship with Christ. It's just me and him. Okay? So take that. And it don't have to be going back into church first. Have church at home. Have church with yourself. And then also another thing, like, visit multiple churches. Don't just go to one and be like, okay, so this is why I don't go to church. Like, the same way we research and look for the right nail tech or the right doctor and things like that, put that same energy into looking for your church home. Okay? So that would be my answer to that. Okay? Try God for yourself, sis. You hear me? All right. So this has been such an amazing episode. I know y'all probably like, okay, the time, Sade. But I just want to have this moment with you all. I'm going to end this episode with a quote of the week. The quote of the week comes from page 108 of our book, Believe Bigger. And it's, the obstacles you faced are really about the obstacles you're assigned to. Okay? So don't think the obstacles that you're going through have not been assigned to you. God already knew you're going to overcome regardless of the decisions that you made. He is always making a way, and everything works for your good. Okay? Thanks for hanging with the Crew Book Club podcast. I will holler at y'all later. Hey. Want to be a part of the crew? Hit that follow button so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, I would appreciate you showing crew love by rating the show on iTunes and Spotify. Don't keep all this goodness to yourself. Share and tell a friend so your whole crew can be growing with you. Let me be the first to tell you, welcome to the crew.